पर आपने मेरा यूनिवर्सिटी का निशान देखा है क्योंकि we have had a partnership with KIU since 2013 से and मेरा बिल्कुल कोई अंदाज़ा नहीं थी कि आज ही मैं आपके सामने बात कर रही हूँ, लेकिन प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर हूँ तो हमेशा कर सकती हूँ ना. That's the value of education. But before I start talking about my topic, I would like to introduce my two colleagues, who are the reason why I have come back to Gilgit this time. I'd like to invite you both. Karen, or if you go to Hunza, you'll be able to listen to them talking about the value of interpreting where women's roles and rights fit into modern society. Indeed, modernity itself generates ambiguities, confusion, when dealing with traditions, religion, and normativity. Despite Pakistan having formal laws or policies existing, there's so many different viewpoints in this country about what women's rights should be, aside from the rules, the laws, and the policies. And different groups understand this in different ways. In other words, it's still not a fully settled issue, despite laws that grant full rights to women in Pakistan, where women's roles and rights fit into society. It's very important, though, that we acknowledge that Pakistan still seeks to find a consensus on what it means, on what rights women should have, what rights that people understand Islam grants to women. And women have the right to inherit property. Women have the right to decide to agree or not agree who they would marry. But I think every single person sitting here, maybe not my two colleagues from Oregon, but everybody else sitting here knows someone who was deprived of her legal right under Islam to inherit property. And everybody sitting here knows of some woman who didn't want to have a marriage, but married that person, and knows of some woman, despite what Muhammad Ali Jinnah said, that the future of Pakistan is in the hands of educated people. You know some women who would have loved to have been sitting here today. But ever since age 9, or 4th standard, they were taken out of school, and that's it. No more education for them. But I would like to applaud every woman sitting here for the accomplishment of getting here. I would like to applaud all the men and women in their families who have opened their minds and also have allowed them to be. Anyhow, talking about women's rights, I am always reminded of something Bacha Khan had said. Bacha Khan said that you can tell the character of a people by the way they treat their women. This is the question before us as Pakistan undergoes enormous social transformation. Should women be considered property? That others decide what happens in her life? That she's handed over from her parents' home to her husband's home, and now the chapter is closed on her being productive in the wider society? Or can we nurture together a culture where it's acknowledged that women have much to contribute to the wider contours of society and culture? And we can show the world the true character of what we in Pakistan truly aspire to be. Think about the laws that have been promulgated in Pakistan since the mid-2000s, since 2005. Laws that have been promulgated against traditional anti-women practices, like swada, a 5 or 6-year-old girl be given over to a family where a man was murdered because of the actions of a man in her family, but now that the rest of her life becomes one of massive injustice. Also, laws to stop sexual harassment in the workplace, and laws to fully implement, especially in the last 5 years, to implement education for all. We should acknowledge that the space occupied by women in traditional society and the sense of women's rights existing therein is changing remarkably today. But what's truly staggering is the divergence of views about what these changes should be. Culture wars are visibly ripping the country apart as groups talk past one another. People say, this is what Islam says about women and their rights. And other people say the same thing, and they're talking about something completely different. Well, there's also another group that says, we are modern people, and Islam is our religion and our belief, but where women belong in Islam, where the women belong in society, what role does religion truly play in dictating that to us? But as I said, these culture wars are visibly ripping the country apart as groups talk past one another, each confident that they are the proprietors of culture and interpreters of that culture. And they say that others are misrepresenting it. These cultural conflicts are manifesting today as actual wars, albeit power and ideology are deeply integrated into them. I had hoped to share a quote by Muhammad Ali Jinnah with you, but somehow when I sent it to myself, the quote didn't come through. But it's a quote where Jinnah urges, he says that the challenge confronting Pakistan is to fulfill the promise of educating every child in this country so they can make their contributions. And the plea of Quaid-e-Azam for the country to facilitate educating all of its children in preparation for, I quote him, the arduous task lying ahead of them, is one that we all know sitting here remains unrealized. It's wonderful that KIU is trying to come up with developing new technologies that can reach out to others. I know in the field of entrepreneurship, they're even trying to develop short courses of 6 months so that even people who don't get a university degree can benefit from skill training and opening their minds to what is possible. But the dearth of schools that adequately prepare students in Pakistan for the variety of roles they can play in the country's future economically and politically pales in importance to the reality they could also play as social unifiers, having people embrace the values of acceptance of diversity, negotiating when disputes arise, community responsibility, more than just responsibility to one's own family, but responsibility to the community in which you live, and personal responsibility to the surrounding environment. This can go far in countering violence and extremism, as students would then grow up to shun participating in violence and extremism. Indeed, one of the most important institutions, we all know that, we're sitting here, that affects individuals' values and priorities in schools, is schools. And while in the pre-industrial past it was the families that were socializing children, today it's largely schools. But as they prepare students for professions, they also prepare them for participation in the society at large. And Pakistan's schools falling short of providing a sound, constructive education results in many social dislocations, including for some to see extremism as a viable option. Hence the urgency that is felt among many people and groups in Pakistan to envision schools that will not only provide a solid education, but also inculcate a passion for living in a peaceful, flourishing community, and girls belong there too. I've had the privilege of visiting 2 different school systems in Pakistan. The Bacha Khan school system in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa that has 14 schools, and the attendance of these free schools is about half and half girls and boys. In areas people say they don't send their daughters to school there, but if you can provide a good education, solid, sound education, and also ensure it's in a safe environment, but also promote peace and collegiality and understanding, people will send their daughters to school. I've also gone to the Zoya Science Schools in southern Punjab, again areas where extremism has been rampant. These are free schools that not only promote STEM, science, technology, and math, and have about 50-50 girls and boys, but they also promote peace. So in all of our educational endeavors, I hope that we can keep that in mind as part of our curriculum. In conclusion, I want to say that the University of Oregon has been honored to partner with KIU ever since 2013. In the first part of our partnership, we helped KIU promote environmental understanding, environmental sustainability, and also business management with an emphasis on entrepreneurship, which I'm very proud to say resulted in the creation of the Center for Sustainable Entrepreneurship at KIU. We also taught facilitated faculty to be able to teach about sports marketing. Faculty at KIU teach about sustainable tourism. In fact, the Hunza campus has that as a key priority. And now we have a new grant on promoting women's entrepreneurship in Gilgit-Baltistan. And as part of that grant, I introduced my colleagues who have accompanied me. But another part of that grant is that we are assisting KIU to establish a Department of Sociology and Gender Studies so that they can be teaching about and students can understand the important challenges that are occurring in gendered power relations, meaning between males and females, fathers, daughters, mothers, daughters, sons, the whole mix of gendered power relations as Gilgit-Baltistan undergoes formidable social change. This is not some side issue to be addressed. This is important. I'm a sociologist. I've been working on this issue for about over 40 years. पाकिस्तान के बारे में, and मुझे उम्मीद है कि आप लोग भी देखेंगे कि क्या हो रहा है and how can we work together in understanding these gendered power relations as women are entering the workforce, women are starting their own entrepreneurial endeavors, because ultimately the whole goal is to build a better Pakistan. Mehrbani.